Hey, you. My name is Jer. I'm the tech lead of Global Voices. And in this video, I'm going to show you a new feature on our WordPress sites called Extra Wide Post. It's a feature of the site and the theme and the plugin. So it only works on Global Voices. And it's something that can help us give more options for how posts look. And you can see a bit of the preview here of the same post in two different formats. And I can open up that same post. Uh, and so basically, this is the difference. This is the wide one. This is the old one. And the way to think about it is, for a long while, we used to have stuff on the right that made it so that the post and the overall site were the same width because there was sidebar stuff. But then we removed the sidebar and centered the post. But we always had the content of the post limited in width because we wanted things like paragraphs to be comfortably thin. You know, like a newspaper has really thin columns, but on websites where the text goes all the way across, it becomes very hard to read. Your eyes have to travel too much. It's hard to find the next line. Without going into all that, we want to keep that benefit that most good news websites have, while also enabling some things to be bigger. Like, for example, isn't it nice to be able to have images that are even bigger? And that's what the wide, extra wide layout enables. So here's an example. I wanted to show just a couple of important things that happened. One, the title and the whole header of the post become the width of the site. Images, if they're big enough, become the full width of the site. Text stays the same. Headings stay the same as the text, so they'll always line up. And then if you have floated images, they always show at 50% width. That's always been true. So in the old mode, they show at 50%. But in the new mode, they show at 50% of the total, and they kind of jump out and get even bigger. So it not only makes full width images look bigger and nicer when you have the size, but it also means that you can have an image that's sort of a middle size. If you float it to the right or to the left using the alignment features in WordPress, you get a really nice effect. Okay, so that is the main thing, and I'm going to talk about more details as we go forward, but the next thing I wanted to show was an example of a post and how you convert it. And so the one thing to keep in mind is not every post should be converted. And I'll show you an example. This was an example post that I thought, what do we gain from making this wide? Because I could show you here with a little temporary thing that will show you, okay, mostly it's just text and there's only one image. And if we made, and this image is actually a screenshot from a YouTube video, like it says, and if we make it bigger, it won't be high enough resolution, right? There's no high enough resolution version of this picture. And so really it's mostly about the text. If people want to look more at that image, they can click on it and it'll take them to the YouTube video. So in this case, I don't think we should convert this post. This post is better off being thin and it makes it very dramatic and nice. Also, depending on the shape of the image, if a really wide image will look better in this format because it won't be too tall. Whereas if an image is more or less square, it just becomes very, very big and fills up the screen, right? Because remember, most people won't be this is a very square window I have here on my big screen. On a small laptop, it won't look quite like that. All right, so that's an example of why we want to decide for each post, is this a good post to use this format? This was a post I found that I thought would be good, so we're going to convert it. So here's what we're doing. We're going to keep this one open, and we're going to edit it in a new tab. And the first thing I'm going to do once it loads is go down to the post settings meta box, which is in the post editor a little further down, right? So we have all the post editor stuff. If we scroll past the post, right, and it might be in a different place for you because these boxes, you can move them around. So this might be higher up for you. I might move it over here since I'm using a lot right now. And there's two settings, hide sharing tools and extra wide layout. So no matter what, even if it's not in this box, it could move, but it would always be called extra wide layout. And I tick that box and I update the post. Okay. So here's what we get. And okay, it's not great. And that's the thing. The thing to remember is this doesn't automatically apply to every post because not every post will look good in it. Some posts just don't need it. This one had a lot of floated images, so I thought it was a perfect candidate. But we have to do some work. Specifically, we're going to do two things. We're going to change the size of the images that are used so that they are bigger because they just have to be bigger. This is using the large size, and we can see here, if we come in the editor and we click on the image and we edit, it's using the large size, and I'll make this bigger for now. Right, we'll make this nice and big. Okay, even bigger. We're using the large size, which it says is 800 by 450 pixels. And in the old format, this is enough. This is the right amount because that's as wide as the thing can go. This is the normal mode. This is the wide mode, right? So in the wide mode, that same image, which was enough for the normal mode, isn't enough. And so it doesn't fill and it moves to the left because it's not aligned. So what we want to do is change the size to huge. And there should, if you upload a new image and it's big enough, so if it's at least 1200 pixels when you upload it, there will be a huge and a huge 16 by 9. In this case, we're going to use the huge 16 by 9, which just means that it's automatically cropped so that it's a little bit shorter, you know, like wider rather, widescreen format. So I'm going to put the huge 16 by 9 and update. Okay, it might look the same in here, but when I update it and I come back to the post in wide version, we'll see when it's ready that now it is big enough, right? And sorry, so we were looking at it more like this so we could see now the image is the same width of the site and it looks good and it's high resolution. Great. So what else can we do? Well, we had some floated images and these guys are probably set to medium size, 400 pixels. And that's not enough anymore. We could see they're floated. They're kind of awkward here, but they're only being rendered at 400 when in fact they could be rendered even bigger. And if we go to these floated images and we set them to large instead, so I'm going to do that and I'm going to do it here. And this one, what I'm actually going to do is put it left. So let's see how that looks. So I put it large. And this way they are going to be able to do the thing where they take up as much space as possible. Let me see if this is faster. Great. Okay, see, and now they are bigger. They're actually half width of the full thing. So there we go. So if you have a full width image, you're going to want to use huge instead of large. And if you have a half width image that's aligned left or right, you want to use large instead of medium. The other thing we can do, and this applies in general, is just move around the images to make sure that they are in that the text flows well, right? Like, and that's always been a thing that we need to worry about. So if I just take this second image and just move it down a bit, so I'll click on it, I'll go here into the source code, and I could see there's the caption shortcode. So I will copy this. And what I'll do is just move it down a couple paragraphs, and that'll usually fix it. So now we can see here it looks pretty good. And if I preview the changes, I think we'll get a pretty nice result. Okay, there we go. So now the text is flowing around and you could keep playing with it to like make sure that it's always next to some text that makes sense and that the text has enough room to move around, right? So that's all part of composition. Point being, these floated images are going to be a lot bigger than they used to be. So once again, if we come back and we compare, that's how big they were before. That's how big they are now. So they look a lot bigger, and it's a great way to have images that just aren't big enough. But let's continue by imagining that we have an image that isn't big enough and we want to have it in the post. And so let's say at the beginning of the post, you got to have a big image because without the big image, it looks pretty terrible to not have it aligned with the header. And if you don't have a big enough image at the start of the post, that's a good reason to just say, it's all right, we'll do a normal non-extra wide post. But in the middle of the post, it could come up that you have an image, you want it to show centered and full width, but it's not big enough to actually go all the way. So let's take this image and we will remove the align left and make it align center. Now it's going to fill the space and we'll see what's going to happen. It's going to be not big enough and it's not going to fill the space because it's only large. It's only 800 pixels and it needs to be 1200. So the answer is pretty simple. A lot of you will know what to do. Just center it. If you align center and then we preview the changes, it's going to look pretty good. It's going to line up with the size of the text and everything's going to be okay. So that's that. If you have an image in the middle of the post, You can either float it left or center. And here's the thing, a lot of the time it's going to look better floated, right? Like which of these two images looks better? Now that the floated images are bigger, there's a good reason if an image isn't 1200 pixels to just float it to the left. It'll be fine. All right, so thank you for following along so far. Here is a example post that I have that is linked. You can find this one. It's a test post with all the formats. And so you can see it has all kinds of different stuff that we use in our posts, different types of images. I use it for testing, but it could be useful for you to see how things work. And in my blog post here, this video is going to be in the blog post, so it's a bit meta. But in the blog post, you can find a link to it in the WordPress posting guide where the instructions about extra wide posts are. So if we open the posting guide, and I've copied and pasted the contents of the posting guide into this blog post, but in the posting guide, right, and then you come to extra wide, right? It's here under post settings, extra wide layout. And then here, there's the link to the post format. So if you ever want to find it, that's how you can find it. And the thing about the post formats is that they show off the extra wide. So I just wanted to quickly go through this and show you what happens to different things, just so you're not surprised. So first of all, big images show big. That's great. Things like tables of contents don't show big. They show constrained because that makes them easier to read. All right, headings. An image with a caption will show extra wide. For technical reasons, an image with no caption won't show extra wide. So here, that's the same image at the same size, but the second one isn't wide because it has no caption. So it's just sort of something that's very hard to fix. And most of the time you should use a caption. So if you want it to be extra wide, just use the caption and that'll fix it. Here was an example of an image that's not big enough, so it floats to the left. We already looked at that a lot. And the answer is centering it, or removing the caption will make it not be wide and therefore be constrained, and it'll match the size of the text. Okay, so we have examples of floated images with captions that have the effect of the extra wide. And then if you have floated images without a caption, once again, it sort of loses the extra wide is how you could think of it. And so they're now trapped inside the paragraph and much smaller. So I guess theoretically, if you wanted to have them look small on purpose, you could remove the captions from images, although don't remove captions from images. Things like quotes, our translation quotes, our lists, they all match paragraphs, right? So as someone is reading, most of the time, they'll just be in the thin column. There's something called pull quotes. We rarely use it, but it obeys the extra wide if you do use that. Fact box is this format that you have in posts, and it looks like this. If you take a piece of text, here, I'll make this bigger, and then you go to formats, and then you go to fact box, and it adds a gray box around it, and you can also make it so that it floats to the right by saying factbox.align right, and that'll make it slide over, right? And that's what we're seeing in the test post. This is a fact box, and these are fact boxes left and right, and so they obey this. And so you could use a fact box for like an aside, for some extra information, and this is a good reason to use them that way because they will now take up less of the space that the paragraphs, like they'll cut into the paragraph less, and they'll be just bigger and wider and nicer, and they'll cause that interesting breakup of the layout. All right, so there's some stuff we don't have to worry about too much here. All right, so I just wanted to show you that, especially the thing about captions and how captions make it active or inactive, and then the stuff about image and image sizes. Okay, so we've talked about that. We talked about this post, which we converted and is much more dramatic now. I wanted to show one more example. Okay, finally, something that might come up that you might want to debug is sometimes I made this post. So there's two things about this post. One, the image would need to be bigger, right? And actually, this is a post that doesn't need to be extra wide because there's only one image and it's perfectly acceptable at 800 pixels. It's a big enough, and the resolution probably isn't that good on the original. But more importantly is this paragraph. What is going on? It's not in alignment with the others. It's also got strange spacing. So I just wanted to show that the way this whole system works relies on all of the content being what we expect. Paragraphs, quotes, lists, fact boxes, images, the things that we expect. If there's something random, it could end up being wide or not wide. depending on the situation, depending on what it is. So I wanted to show how I fix this. And in this example, what it is it's just extra HTML crap that's in the posts. The kind of stuff you get from copying and pasting from another website or from Google Docs directly into the visual editor. So if I come to the paragraph in question, we select the paragraph that is affected, which I know is this one that says it is generally. I go to text and we see it selected. And what we could see is that these two paragraphs, right, have this div around them. And what that does is that when WordPress sees it, it renders it as a div. And then because it's not a paragraph, it's showing wide. And the thing about WordPress is when you have a div like that, it stops it from automatically adding the paragraph tags. So if I just do this and preview, we should see that the first paragraph is fixed, right? And then I think I might be able to do what I often do, which is select the paragraph and click the clear formatting. It's sort of an eraser icon. And if I click this, will it work? No, it didn't work, but sometimes it will. And so I wanted to show you. I was trying to find an example that would work, and it's tough because some of the things weren't triggering the bug. And anyway, if you have something like that, what you want to do is go in the source and make sure it's nice and clean, like the paragraphs around it. And then when you preview, you'll see that it is all fixed up. There we go. And it all looks good. So that's it. That is extra wide posts. Thank you for watching this nice long video. Please remember that this post is here. Remember that you can come to the post or go straight to the GV guides on the community site. And then you go in the guide references here, you go to WordPress posting guide. This has so much useful information, and hopefully I'll be able to make this a wide post soon because I could use it. But you can come down here and go to post settings, extra wide layout, and that'll be the permanent home for this information. Great. Oh, one final thought, which is remember mobile. Don't forget that almost every user is viewing Global Voices on their phone, right? And I will just do this. If I put it like this is how my browser simulates a phone. But remember that it kind of doesn't matter, right? If we come to our example posts here, when I make it mobile, everything about extra wide goes away. And what we see is that every image is full width and things just flow one after the other. So always ask yourself if you're ever crafting some masterpiece of a extra wide post and putting in some kind of image or content that needs that space, that on mobile, it's not going to work. So you want to make sure that you click a link, have a link to download the thing and so people can zoom and stuff. But yeah, most of our readers are always going to be viewing it in mobile format. So always take for granted that that's the case. But there's no reason why for people with big screens, they can't have a nicer view. And that's what this is all about. All right. Thank you so much. If you have issues, you can contact me, Jer. You can contact me through my community profile on the blog post. You can contact me on Slack if you're on the GV Slack, or jer@globalvoices.org. As always, if you send me a bug report, send me the links to where you had the problem, and go ahead and send me screenshots if you can of what you're seeing so that I can try and debug it faster. Anyway, I'm Jer. I love you. Bye-bye.